today we will do a continuation of what we were doing last time, which is gonna be pretty much an exploration of what happens after you get to the end of time on the tutorial chapter. And 700 has been completed. 700 is done, and the 1020 time period is now looking almost done. We're gonna start with, here's what we got. We have a sloppy mess of notes, so I'll go through these. I would never expect anyone to read that themselves, but I'll go through these and slowly explain the contents and then what I plan to do. Okay, here's a map of 1020 AD. Oops, forgot to put the year in there. There we go. And this was modified from a map that Sean Bojangles did of 1999 AD. Let me just show that one real quick. Okay, so here's the original map that Sean Bojangles did of the 1999. And then we sort of modified it to be what 1020 would look like in this timeline. And so the notes for that one are extensive. We're going to go through each of the locations, and that would look something like this. So you can see all the notes for that one. And then we got Melkor. It's part of that. Look at that wall of text. So we're going to clean that up. Of course, Chrono finally getting his time in the sun. This is not what I would consider the ideal presentation of this info. And what we're starting with is we'd be going from, when you get to the end of time, you have these three choices, really. You can go to 700, which I think it should say where angels lose their way, not evil angels. And then both Gunpowder and Smoke and Song of the Komodo are in 1020. But we're going to be focusing on Gunpowder and Smoke today. But before we get started with that, we can review the here's a good one from 1020. To pop it off. People of the present worship a heroic emperor who united the world before perishing in the day of fire. Of course, that's a reference to Dalton and the events that took place here, specifically in part 2. Where did Dalton go after Chrono Trigger? But let's take a moment to pause this. And of course, you can watch the whole movie on our channel. That's like a 2-hour movie. So don't take the task lightly. However, what we're going to be doing is, first of all, big focus on Chrono today. So we're just reviewing the new material before we get started with today's activities. Old Gina, Chrono's mom. Got a few more. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that we're going to clean up the... This is one that we did last time that now looks good. Okay, let's just actually go through the... If you started a new game, starting a new game is gonna put you on a select variety of... Selecting new game triggers the courtroom start. This is stuff we've covered before. But I wanted to update a few of the... videos because they were kind of text heavy. So after that, you would go to chapter 1. Then they get separated. Keen eyes noticed that I spelled separated wrong, but I doubt I'm going to change it. Can't have it perfect. Gotta suffer with some information. Okay, chapter 2. This would be a player starting a new game. Then you end up going back to 700 from... this has all been explained before, so I don't want to rehash it. But the part I do want to rehash is the... This one needs a redo. Look at this. That's cool, but this is... I don't know. Does it need a redo? Let me know in the comments. I think it's kind of text heavy. I think a good balance of text and imagery is the best. And then the final shot here just totally covers up Frog, so I'll probably redo that one later. Speaking of redo, these live streams are the road to the final video. So when I finally have all of the primary concepts for the game completed in these little clips, then I'll do a commentary on all of them. Oops. Cool picture, huh? What is going on? Why so many frog? Okay, then the next chapter would be when they end up in El Nido. And here's where we're diverging for today. Because previous iterations of this storytelling technique led us to this one, which is after this, you would end up here. The bound watchman corners Marl and Robo and Gaia's navel. Ayla and her tribe appear to save them. I mean, actually means arrive to save them. They actually do. Oops. After the battle, Ayla invites Marl and Robo to join the tribe. Everyone heads into the time gate at Gaia's navel, taking them to the end of time. Then you get this party stuff. And I thought, you know what? This really doesn't look right to me. It looks too cluttered. So, redid that. So imagine, let's see, let's take a step back. We're going to, right after, not that one. Right after this one, we got some new ones. So it would be the Bound Watchman, who's kind of a version of Miguel. More on that later, but let's just say he's an OP boss that early game players are not likely to be able to defeat. But when he corners Marl and Robo, Ayla and her friends arrive to help. And this would be a good chance to introduce the player to multi-party battles. Even if you can't control all the characters, you have a multi-party battle scenario based on just many guests. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of guest fighters that are on your side. Imagine the vibe of that, where you're controlling 3, but you have a lot of other computer-operated players joining in and playing with you. I feel like that would feel epic. Suikoden-esque, but if... It's hard to explain, but if you have a bunch of guest characters helping you out, you'll feel swept away. You'll feel swept away in the adventure, no doubt. Okay, so then after Isla shows up, because she was at Gaia's navel this whole time, you can check previous episodes to learn about that. After the battle, Isla recruits Marl and Robo into her tribe. Cool? Very cool. And then after that, everyone jumps into the ancient time gate at Gaia's navel, landing them at the end of time. So at this point, you'd have Marl, Robo, Isla, and all of her tribe. Total badasses in every way. Here's good video of the tribe from Sovan Jedi did this. This would be them performing the ancestral elements. That's not totally the one I was going for. Let's check out, what's this one? Okay, after the tutorial chapter, which we just laid out, the party arrives at the end of time. You can go to 4 places: prehistory, 700, 1020, and 2300. So we've talked a lot about we've basically finished prehistory and 700 over the last couple months. And now we're in 1020, where you can recruit. I really got to show that one. I'm such a fan of this one. What's it say? Come on, man. I gotta be able to find it easy. Okay, while I look for it, I'll just bail out, do the other stuff. Take a look. Oh, that's perfect. That's a perfect segue. Oops. Advanced dynamic spell growth. Okay, but I want to backtrack after this. That would be Aura at level 99. Okay, so today we're talking about the present. Here you go. This is the one I wanted to show. Here are your choices. 2 time zones hold 3 recruitable wielders of the Masamune. Let's focus on one of our faves. The man, the legend. His name's in the title. So what would our boy be like? You've been following along, and then you know that in the or in the broken timeline, Dalton pretty much messed everything up. So let's read this. Let me zoom in. What would Chrono be like if he grew up 100 years after the Day of Lavos? So in this storyline, the Day of Lavos gets reset to 900 AD thanks to Dalton's chicanery. One of the kids in Chrono Cross says even angels lose their way. You know what? I really need to double check on that, because I know that where angels lose their way is a thing that was said by about the Angeless Aurora, the passage between dimensions, but I'm not actually 100% that one of the ghost kids in Chrono Cross says that. They probably do, if I've got it here. My notes are normally pretty solid, but I'm going to double check that. That's neither here nor there. What we see is, here we see how Chrono could have grown up to be a much darker person given a different set of circumstances. Chrono wields a mysterious version of the Masamune, which he calls the Blood Sword. Marl can also use it. He's much tougher, and I don't know about much tougher. That's just kind of text that I threw on there. But a post-apocalyptic Chrono would be, in certain ways, less innocent than the one that we met in Chrono Trigger. He's much tougher, much in quotations with the possibility of being removed. Given all the terrible things he's seen, well within his rights to remain the unspoken, silent type. Here we go. Ori said that the protagonist of an RPG must never speak. At Square, opinions were divided on the issue. Well, we know that we went with the silent protagonist in the end, and Chrono Trigger is freaking baller. No one ever complained that Chrono never said anything, and I mean, Legend of Zelda is one of the greatest selling franchises of all time, and Link hardly ever talks, so I think silent protagonist is fine. He's much tougher. Oh, we just wrote that. Then last time we were talking about this version of Chrono, one of my boys in the chat mentioned that he might be a wistful representation of Chrono, longing for a freedom beyond the hell he was born into. Old Chrono can dual wield the Steel Shade, as he's sometimes called. Not necessarily confirmed as the Steel Shade that we faced in Chrono Trigger DS. Just a nod to that. We'll get into that in a minute, but his nickname amongst his peer group is the Steel Shade, can use guns, and he's also not yet magically powered because he's never encountered Specchio on this timeline. So let's get into talking about that. I think the best one for that is, let's go through them. Here we go. Alright, so you're going to go back to 1020 AD. And we have, let's just refresh by looking at this. You're at the end of time, return to the present. Back in Guardia Forest, the sky is darker and the Lavos spawn are much larger. Passage through the wall is now possible with Robo's ability to interface with the Simple Gate computer. So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the Dalton corrupted 1020 AD, which would look something like this. Here's the timeline for that. So 100 years after the destruction of the Earth, you'd expect some greenery to have returned. This might be too much. I am going to adjust the hue of this map so that it looks darker. But what you see out here is the Let me zoom in. Up. Oh, excuse me. So here in Xenon, you have the ruins of Guardia Castle and this ambiguous looking metal piece. Then in the ocean, you've got the sort of decayed but sturdy remnants of the Black Omen, which was in the ocean. Let me just show you this one real quick. Let's show you the map of 700. Sorry, getting there. This is going to say 600, but it's actually 700. I just haven't adjusted it yet. How do I zoom in? Okay, see how the Black Omen's in the ocean there? That was taken from Simon Andersen's Chrono Break trailer. See that? This is very important. The Black Omen is in the Middle Ages kind of neutralized and has been made into a settlement, the home of Dalton's base. Once again, you can check out, not this. We looked at this already. Pardon me. Wow. A lot here. You can check out our 3-part series. Where did Dalton go after Chrono Trigger? Explains all that. So what you have is the Black Omen in the middle of the ocean in 700. Location might not be exactly the same as on the map here, but pretty much it's hanging out right to the south of Chrono's hometown. And Dalton sort of made that his base, right? So if this is in 700 AD, then because they super juiced the Mammon machine, the Mammon machine is much more hype, and it causes a premature Day of Lavos in 900. Okay? So then by the time that Chrono comes around in the present, it's just ruins. There's just ruins out there in the middle of the ocean. So this is what it looks like in 1020. And like I said, the land would probably be a bit browner. So we're going to talk about all the places you can visit here, but this map is one of the most crucial components of this particular. See that? There's all this stuff I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to get to that specifically, but now that we've shown the new stuff, I'm gonna just drop one more thing here. Which is, the retrieval in this time zone of a version of Chrono. He's not the one that we know. He's an older guy. By 1020, he would be obviously 20 years older than the Chrono that we knew, and he's grown up in that post-apocalyptic life. A member of the... See if we can get back to... What does Gasper say about 1020? He says, roving gangs of survivors create a tormented landscape of perpetual war. Only a small army can survive. Okay, so we're going to get back to this in a minute. I'm going to do a little bit of work to clean up all of this stuff that I showed you. That one's already clean. So I will remove it. Yeah, we're going to clean up this one. We're going to clean up this one and go through it. We're going to clean up this. This is the one we were just looking at. So we're going to clean this up, and I'm going to get back to explaining more about that. Melchior is part of it. He'll be around for the 1020 section. Let me just drop this. There we go. And of course, Chrono is a big deal. So let me just... There we go. And the last one, the one we'll probably start with, is this one. So I'm going to take a break by dropping you into the randomness of the materials that we've already made. And I'll catch up to you in just a minute with some updates. Chat's active, so I'll be paying attention to that.
到喽。
釣り見てくるんだな。
Okay. So for the 1020 AD scenario, as we have mentioned before, you've got a game mechanic introduced where you're gonna unite, you're gonna claim territory on the map. So imagine you have this map, not in its final form by any means, but I can zoom in and read some of it for you. Okay, 1020. Venture into the Dalton corrupted Keystone, where the Day of Lavos occurred in 900 AD and the world is in ruin. Only a handful of survivors remain. It is a brown, desolate world. That's been retconned. You think 100 years after an apocalypse, the grass has probably grown back. Hard to say, so we might make this a little bit darker, but it's not totally desolate, it's just in chaos. Society is torn by war over resources and everyone is under the influence of darkness. There are small settlements, but towns like Truce, Medina, and Por are more like roving tribal territories. So imagine a world where national borders have been erased, and what you're looking at is more like this, which is it's a world divided by by gangs. All right. And so the gangs that you're going to have are up here in the red. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me just leave you with this for now, and I'll label them, and then we'll start talking about that. Alrighty. I got something for you here. So, the end game would be about controlling territory in some certain ways. And here is like the tutorial. 1020 AD is essentially the tutorial of that. So you have these nation states who are, as Gasper mentioned, they're nothing more than essentially like Mad Max style roving territories. And everyone's sort of like under the legend of the Divine Dragon, who, even though it's Dalton and no one likes him, has been, you know, over the years, as mythologies happen, converted into some kind of savior. So here in the very, very north, in Old Guardia proper, you have Octobino. The eternal rivals of Dragon Tank wage war on the Mystics to the east. So let's start with the Mystics. They have this whole continent and this upper one, as well as you can see, control of the Omen. The Mystics call it the Omen. Shout out to its old name of the Black Omen, its original name, and the Western nations call it the Dragon's Nest because it was the seat of Dalton's operations, right? So, as the player, you're dropped into the white area here, and you have an option of joining the Dragon Tank, which I realized I'm going to have to do a little bit more prep, but we're going to talk about this more next time. But essentially, the Dragon Tank is all the squad from, you know, Truce, Guardia proper. So this is given a intended proceeding of events through the first playthrough. The player would join up with Dragon Tank, and then you become sort of part of a larger party here. So Dragon Tank controls like Truce and this island here, an honorable gang of warriors, arch rivals of Octobino. So their whole thing is they want to reclaim the ruins of Guardia Castle, which is being held by Octobino. And then you can also go into the south here, where you find Malbranch, an aggressive nation with sworn allegiance to whomever controls the Dragon's Nest. So because the Mystics of the East are in control of the Black Omen ruins, Malbranch is allied with them and sworn to them. So they're not nice. They're very difficult. You know, that's sort of just a battle slog through this whole southern region until you get to the fourth tribe, the fourth nation on the southern continent, Dorino. And Dorino will let you join them if you denounce the dragon, which you can... The reasons for that are apparent in the story earlier. Dorino put up the most resistance against Dalton during his empire, so in this case you have pretty much the only nation state who's not about the Divine Dragon, who's not swept up in the legend of this figure, who we know to be Dalton, who's not a nice guy, but because of the way mythology changes things, they believe the dragon to be some kind of, you know, holy emperor type. So Dorino will let you join them if you denounce the dragon. However, if you have Chrono in your party, old Chrono, and you denounce the dragon in front of them, he will leave the party. Or possibly go berserk, and you'll have like a huge fight with him. I realize now there's a lot more explanation that needs to go into this, but this is just the outline of what I've got coming up for you. Over in the east, you see the Mystics, by far the strongest gang on the planet. The Mystics have long controlled the sacred site in the ocean, which they call the Omen. Western nations call it the Dragon's Nest. Mystics call it the Omen. There you go. The remains of that base that Dalton set up there. And then, far to the southeast, you have Bullfrog, powerful isolationists. They dream of one day. being in control of the omen themselves. So I'm pretty much think that that's enough for today to cover. I'll just make it a lot more clear and get into it next time. But before I leave, I just want to point out that the here you go. All of these armies get their names from unused enemies in Chrono Trigger. So if you go to the cuttingroomfloor.net, you can find that Octobino and Bullfrog. So it's not all of these armies. Dragon Tank obviously gets their name from the classic Final Chrono Trigger villain. And then Malabranch is a Final Fantasy VI villain. But Malabranch is essentially the remnant of Poor. But Octobino and Bullfrog come from unused enemies in Chrono Trigger. And of course the Mystics, who, because Dalton drove the actual Mystics to extinction, are not even... They're not even Mystics. They're just called the Mystics due to their cultural heritage. But pretty much it's a mostly human world now, thanks to Dalton's cruel actions, where he sort of went xenophobic genocide on everyone in the early years. So we will get back to more of this later, and I guarantee the next episode will explain all of this in its entirety. But for now, I just kind of wanted to give you an idea about how in the final stages of the game, after you've graduated from the tutorial chapter into the later into the true overworld, the break, it is about controlling territory in a certain way. And so this is like the player's tutorial into that kind of world, where chunks of the map are assigned to them based on their actions. And so here you would have, in an ideal scenario, you know, this sort of option, where you would unite the gangs to restore peace to the Xenon mainland and the world in general if you take on the Mystics. Feel free to ask any questions. Happy to answer, but for now, I'm gonna just call it there and say thanks for watching, and I'll catch up to you next time when we go into more of this kind of map claiming mechanic. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure.